Hello, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Sweetbaths, and today we're launching right into this blank doll because my computer decided to replace my first video with something completely different, and since it was cut and pasted from my phone, I have no way to get the original footage back. I'm in the process of a move though, and will have a much better craft space, including a dedicated camcorder for repaint footage, which should not only improve the video quality, but prevent things like this from happening in the future. This doll was made for my 500 follower giveaway on Instagram, where the winner got to select a doll out of the main Monster High Ghoul lineup to use as the base, then provide a theme and color scheme, which I would then interpret. The winner, Frederick's Dolls, chose Ghoulia as you can see here, and was interested in receiving an elf with darker colors, specifically calling out emerald and other gem tones. I was a little nervous about working on Ghoulia again, since I struggled so much with the eyes the last time I worked on her mold, but practice really does make perfect, and I was able to learn from my prior mistakes and get a decent shape this time around. However, I think I was having some issues with my sealant, and it was pretty hard to get the initial lines down. So I took the risk of going in with black for the first layer on top of the very faint lines. I would not recommend doing this. I didn't want to lose my motivation by waiting for a new layer of sealant to dry, since it's been very hard for me to get and stay motivated lately, but I would encourage you to get the sealant on properly and work in lighter colors for the first layer. I'm still working on figuring out the order that works best for me, so for this doll I followed the upper lid with the waterline of the lower lid in order to help fully define the eye shape, or at least that was the plan. Because of the sealant issues, the lighter colors had an even harder time showing up, and it's almost impossible to see. I tried going in with the white pastel chalk pencil, as this is a much different consistency than watercolor pencils, but even with that I was still having a tough time with it showing up as well as it should have, and it took much more effort to get the proper color payoff. Still, I press on using a nice amethyst color for the iris, working slowly to ensure the shape is just how I want it and I don't repeat my earlier Ghoulia mistakes of drawing the eyes too low. I add the eyelid crease with a shade a bit darker than the skin, but again struggle to get it visible. After a few touch-ups, I add the lips with pastels, trying to get an earthy color, which ended up way oranger than I wanted. I changed course, electing to go back to the gemstone theme and making the lips a much deeper red for a garnet ruby crossover. It actually took a while to get the color exactly how I wanted, and I ended up using several varying shades until I was happy with it. In fact, I was so happy with it that I didn't actually build up color on the lips on any of the other layers. Of course, this color buildup on the lips was done out of frame, along with stamping on eyebrows with pastels. Just remember that with pastels you can be a bit messier and easily erase any fallout with a kneaded eraser. I used some pastels for the iris as well, which really helped amp up the color after my shoddy sealant work.
Hi, buddy. Hi, buddy.
With my confidence in this first layer restored, I continue with pastels to add contouring to the face. I always think of slim, chiseled features when I think of elves, and wanted to incorporate that into the doll, even though Ghoulia already has a pretty gaunt mold. I took her out and gave her a proper sealing, then began working on the next layer, and the colors are going on so much better. I start by building up the colors in the eyes, first the black for the liner, then purple for the irises, followed by darkening the eye crease. Next up is detailing the brows by drawing individual hairs near the front and darkening the ends. For eyeshadow, I take a nice emerald green color and pat this on the eyelid, returning to the gemtone color scheme. From here, I just built up more of the colors on the face, such as the contour and the eyes, and added blush. I also built up the color of the eyeshadow, but struggled with the green. I wanted it to be an evident emerald as requested, but not looking out of place with the elf theme. I decided to revisit it later, but in the meantime, lashes! After all that, I redid the lower lashes and erased the upper lid off camera and started over. I was going to cut it out to save time on the video, but I figured it was important to show that mistakes happen, changes in direction happen, and it's okay to not get it right immediately. I know I've been guilty of thinking I'm never going to be as good as other artists who get things perfect the first time, neglecting the fact that what's being shown likely isn't the first time, or if it is, it's come with years of practice. Remember to go at your own pace and take all the time and attempts you need until you're happy with your work. Because I tried to go forward with the eyeshadow even though I wasn't truly happy with it, I ended up losing the eyelashes that I was actually really pleased with. In the end, it only ends up hurting you to not properly take your time, so please don't rush your art. This time around, I toned the green eyeshadow way down, as it was extremely heavy-handed before, and then blended it into brown on the outer corners of the eyes, going for a mix of gem tones and earthy natural colors. After redrawing the eyelid crease, I go in again on the lashes. I even ended up doing the lower lashes a third time, as I felt my second attempt was pretty good, but too intense for the doll. Once I'm happy with the state of the face, I conceal it and begin working on layer 3, which will mostly just be building up more colors and adding details.
Hi, buddy. No, I have to record.
I love you too. I've seen a lot of artists use white on areas like the inner lower corner of the eyes and underneath the eyelashes, and I finally decided to give it a try myself. I really think it was a huge improvement, and I can't wait to do this on future dolls as well. Just make sure the lines are thin. Use a super sharp pencil and erase anything that's too thick. We want it to emphasize, not overpower. Time for Pearl Ex powders to add some pretty shimmer to the doll. I'm doing a lot for this doll. Purple Pearl Ex in the eyes, green and brown on the eyeshadow, and an all-over micro pearl for the skin. I shake mine a bit and tap the top. Since a little really goes a long way, I typically pick some up off the lid with a slightly wet brush instead of dipping into the actual pot. When pigment gets in an area I don't want or is too harsh, I can tidy it up with a kneaded eraser. However, I realized way later that I did these in a bad order and should have done the skin first, erased what I didn't want, like in the eyes, lips, and eyebrows, then eyeshadows with more erasing in the eyes, and finally the iris. Live and learn. I also make sure to go over my pencil lines again since I don't want shimmer covering these, and then seal it in. Layer 4 was done off camera, but was another layer of Pearl Ex, in the correct order this time, followed by drawing over the lashes again and adding some shadows to the eyes and face. After sealing, I bring out the white acrylic paint for 2 layers of eye shines and black to enhance the lashes and pupils. Use a thin brush, tiny amount of paint, and a steady hand when working with acrylics on the eyes. I find it so easy to mess up at this stage. Details are added to the lips with the white chalk pastel pencil and blended out to look more natural. Since the lashes were made bolder with the paint, I felt I had to do the same with the white lines underneath them, which, of course knowing me, was done out of frame. The 5th and basically final layer is complete, and once it's sealed and dry, gloss can be added to the eyes. I always do 2 coats of gloss, ensuring the first has completely dried before adding a second. Usually it takes about an hour. For a more natural look, I opted to leave the lips unglossed, but it's up to you on what you do for your dolls. Guess who forgot she was making an elf? I made tiny ear modifications with Epoxy Sculpt, carved in the inner ear designs while it was still malleable, and sanded it after it had dried. I would not recommend doing modifications after the face-up, and instead do them first. It was stressful doing sanding, color matching, and sealing after the face-up was completed. Off-screen, I made the clothes. First up is this medieval-inspired top, made from DG Requiem's Shabby Chic and Mori patterns for the bodice and sleeves respectively. Pants from her Business Basics pattern, made out of a cotton fabric that looked like old worn leather at doll scale. And a vest modified slightly from the same Business Basics pattern. The pins are in there to attempt to keep the punched holes wide so I can thread embroidery floss through and close it on the doll. Enjoy watching me struggle to get her vest on since I forgot I had sewn a snap on the back of the neck for the purpose of dressing her easier. Unfortunately, the pins were too narrow and didn't keep the holes open wide enough, and I had trouble finding a needle with an eye wide enough for the embroidery floss, so it ended up taking over half an hour to get the holes widened and lace up the vest, so I won't be showing that ordeal. On an Instagram live several months prior to starting the face-up, I began the wig making process and, well, remember the beginning of the video where I mentioned losing footage? That was the wig, so unfortunately I have nothing to show for the hair, but it was made from Simply Soft acrylic yarn in chocolate, then sectioned, braided, and double braided. The hair is giving me some Toriel vibes, and as a big Lord of the Rings fan, it must have been a subconscious inspiration since I didn't plan for it to look like her. It was a lot of fun, although a bit tedious. And with that, she's complete. This doll has made it to her new home with my 500 follower giveaway winner, and both of us couldn't be happier. A big thank you to Frederick's Dolls for her endless patience and flexibility in working with me on this. I'm so sorry it took so long, but I hope you think that she was worth the wait. I had so much fun making her, and learned a lot that I can't wait to incorporate into future dolls. Unfortunately, I do have to wait though, as I'm going to be moving in the next month, and I'm unsure when I'll be able to get my craft area fully set up. I'm really looking forward to seeing what changes 2021 brings though. Thanks again to everyone watching. Your support means the world to me. I hope to see you again soon. Stay safe and take care.